Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. I'm just going to display our antitrust policy notice. We show this at the beginning of every call. We normally display it for a minute or two. LF has a policy of displaying this in advance of our calls and our meetings. So I think it's probably time for us to begin the roll call.
Hi, this is Miriam. Sorry.
Oh, welcome, Miriam. Good to have you on board. So on the call today, I see Karsten, I see Andrew, Carlos, Gary O'Neill, Nicole. Marnie Devon is showing from San Francisco. Hi there.
Hi there. My name is Marnie. I work with Carlos through TLDR Legal.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We've got Alberto. We've got Dave. We've got Sammy. We've got Mark Giese. We've got Miriam, and we've got David Rudin. If I've missed you, let me know. Oh, we just had Max join our call as well. Also on the call today is Alexandra, who helps with the OpenChain project administration and has been very kindly doing our written minutes for the last bunch of calls.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, it's quite a busy call today, lots happening, so let's dive straight in. I've done the roll call. If your name wasn't read out, let me know. We want to make sure everyone is included in the minutes. We're going to have two main parts to the call today. One is the project update, where we have a lot of updates, and the other is a guest presentation from TLDR Legal, discussing how they are doing things at the moment and how they might interact with the OpenChain project. So Wind River made a bit of a splash late last month as the first OpenChain 2.0 conformant company. Big congratulations to Mark and his team, and especially because they have OpenChain 1.1, 1.2, and 2.0 conformance. That's quite something, and Mark, thanks for being a pioneer on this. So Mark has also kindly agreed to do a case study with me, and I'm scheduled to send some questions to Mark, and I will plan to do that in the first half of this month, so maybe we can get the case study out around August or so. Does that work for you, Mark?
Yeah.
Perfect. It's quite something to have you as the first company 2.0 conformant, but also the first company which has got conformance with 3 versions of the OpenChain spec. Now, there has been a lot of activity around conformance lately, and just subsequent to Wind River's conformance, we have Hella, an automotive supplier in Germany, getting OpenChain 2.0 conformance as well. In fact, they completed conformance about 5 hours ago. So they've got OpenChain 1.2 and 2.0 conformance. It's great to have them pioneering the adoption of 2.0 in the automotive supply chain. And they've been really good partners in the last couple of months as they've gone through the conformance process. Indeed, I'll probably be asking them for a case study too. They came to the project fresh, they were pretty new, and they've done some really great work in learning how to engage with OpenChain and how to become conformant. We have had another release. In fact, this just happened now, and I'll be promoting it over the next few hours. OpenChain specification 1.2 is now in Russian. Big thanks to our friends at companies like Yandex for doing that. And this is sort of marking the beginning of our engagement with, geographically speaking, the largest country in the world. So very exciting. As people may or may not know, there's a ton of innovative software being created in Russia, some really nice web giants, and their interest in OpenChain is heartening as well, providing us with a land bridge between Western Europe and our friends in China. We have a case study from Toyota that just came out talking about open source software supply chain management. This is something that Endo-Sana Toyota has been promoting for quite a while. And their case study is the beginning of something quite exciting in automotive. OpenChain will have a global automotive work group convened originally by Toyota, with other companies participating, ranging from our board members, such as Bosch, and our conformed organizations, such as Scania, and a bunch of companies which are in the automotive ecosystem around OpenChain, such as Denso 10 and Panasonic. The Automotive Workgroup will kick off with its first formal meeting at Open Source Summit Japan in about 3 weeks. Immediately prior to that, they'll be starting their mailing list. So if you're interested in OpenChain and automotive, let me know, and we'll make sure you're put on the OpenChain Automotive mailing list. And of course, you'll have your invitation to their first face-to-face at Open Source Summit Japan. Very exciting, not least because giant companies like Toyota are really influential in getting open source into things like government policy. In fact, last week, the Japanese government included open source in their new national IP policy directly because of Toyota. And last week, I was in Korea, along with Endo-san. We were giving talks at a conference hosted by the Korean Copyright Commission. And we hope to foster and build on that relationship to get open source deep into governmental policy there as well. The event in Seoul on the 27th, the Copyright Commission event, was actually a superb chance for us to talk with all of the major companies in Korea regarding OpenChain. And immediately prior to that event, we had a great face-to-face with Hyundai, who are interested in being part of the automotive work group, along with other friendly companies like Honda. We were featured in Munich on June 28 at a Software Compliance Academy event. Well, Miriam, I guess I should hand over to you very briefly just to let us know how the event went.
Sorry, I'm just on mute. That event, actually, I didn't participate in. We had another event on the 25th, but so Katharina would be the one to talk to about the event in Munich that the Software Compliance Academy did. Sorry about that.
Not at all. Is the event on the 25th a Bird and Bird event?
Yes.
Wonderful.
And we focused a little bit more on outbound licensing with a large German company participating there. But of course, we talked about OpenChain and how that can help with their internal processes as well.
Fantastic. So what I'd like to do, if possible, would be to get a briefing on the event on the 25th, and I'll promote it across our channels to make sure everyone's up to speed on that as well.
Yes, I'd be happy to send that to you.
Perfect. And this touches on something else which I think might be important. I've been opening a series of discussions with our partners. OpenChain now has got 19 partners across the world, mostly law firms, also consultancies, and of course our friendly third-party certifier, TÜVSUD. We're going to try to have regular partner calls once a month so the partners can share news, and I'm going to try and get on top of all of their activities so we can feature their news as it happens and make sure that our global community is aware of it. So big thanks to organizations like Software Compliance Academy and of course Miriam at Two Birds for sharing information, and for everyone on the call who's a partner, please do keep me up to date so that I can advertise what we're doing across social media and our mailing lists. Our biggest challenge as a project at the moment is that so much is happening, and so many people are trying to keep up with things that will be advantageous to them, but it's also challenging for people to keep on track of the news or to be aware of some of the activities taking place. So do keep me up to date. We've got some more events queued up. Our next one will, oh dear, typo on the slide, my apologies. OpenChain will be featured in Osaka on July 5th. This is an interesting event in particular because we're going to have a keynote plus 3 case studies. So a whole ton of our OpenChain companies are going to be taken to the stage to dig into how OpenChain works and to explain to a broad audience of companies in West Japan what's going on and what's coming next. For those of you who are not familiar with Japan, in West Japan we've got interesting companies such as Nintendo, which are users of open source but might not be at the events around places like Tokyo. Our partner program, as I said, is getting larger. We just entered the Korean market with BKL, one of the top 3 law firms in Korea. We're working with Jungbaek Park, a lawyer who is one of the 2 translators of the OpenChain specification in Korean. It's great to have access in their market, and it closes the loop on CJK. We now have legal representation, people who can be a provider of knowledge in China, Japan, and Korea, covering our core demographics. And of course, this builds on our pre-existing coverage with good friends in places like India. So significant growth in Asia in terms of legal provision for OpenChain users who need it. Latest version of our OpenChain project overview slides are now available. These slides contain speaker notes and can be used internally or externally to help companies get up to speed with OpenChain, particularly suitable for passing to suppliers and whatnot who might need to get a bit of a briefing on what's here today and what's coming next, especially around ISO. We also released OpenChain Japan overview slides. Reasoning here is pretty simple. OpenChain Japan is our biggest local workgroup activity, but we also have workgroups now convening in Korea. Our Indian workgroup will convene soon, and I do hope to announce a regular series of Chinese workgroups in the near future. Hopefully these slides will help set context for people and guide them. I would love to have workgroups occur in other areas, so I'm particularly interested in Germany and North America right now, and I'll try to talk with all our stakeholders over the next couple of months to get that rolling. Now, before anything else, I'd like to welcome TLDR Legal to the stage. This is one of our latest State of the Market overviews, where we've been looking at various things ranging from open source tools for open source compliance automation through to other standards like SPDX. TLDR Legal is interesting because it's a potential resource for simplifying understanding of open source licenses. It's something that's maintained by FOSSA, a company based in Silicon Valley, and I think this may be of interest to our OpenChain audience. Carlos, I'd like to hand over the stage to you for about 10 minutes. I'm guessing you probably want to share your slides, so I'll cancel my slide share at this juncture.
Okay, thank you so much, Shane.
Now,
I appreciate it.
Not at all. And while you're setting up, I noticed we got some new people on the call. So I see Taylor Udell is on the call.
Hi, yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of in the bus right now, so it's a little noisy, but I'm Taylor. I work with Carlos, so I'm excited to meet everybody and listen in on the presentation too.
Super cool. Welcome. And also Jan is on the call as well. So welcome, Jan. Good to have you here. Carlos, over to you for about 10 minutes to run through TLDR Legal and how we might work together in the OpenChain project.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Shane. Really appreciate it. My name is Carlos Chung. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. Does everyone see, I guess, Shane, do you see my screen?
Yeah, it's looking good. Looking good.
Great. So I work on TLDR Legal here. In disclosure, I also work for FOSSA as well. FOSSA is the owner of TLDR Legal. However, we are trying to improve our open source stance. I'm currently the head of open source at FOSSA, and we are building our initiatives to give back to the community. And these are one of our, I would say, our main pillars that we're hoping to give back to the community. So TLDR Legal is one of the top licensing websites in the US and Europe currently today. Just some quick stats over here. We started TLDR Legal over 5 years ago and have seen significant usage growth. We have about 1 million users signed up since 5 years of starting, and we currently average about 75,000 to 100,000 uniques a month. Here on the right, you can see some statistics. In terms of just this last May, we have about 75,000 uniques traffic our website. We're looking to grow this presence as it's a very big content size. So in the future, we are hoping to translate this to Japan for some of our Japanese stakeholders who care a lot about licensing and compliance. And we are also looking to improve a lot of our product roadmap to make this more available in general for different types of users. When we first originally started 5 years ago, it was to do one simple thing. It was to translate really complicated licensed information to make it available for people who don't necessarily have a legal background. So we're talking about developers or program managers or any other types of folks that work at technology companies that don't necessarily understand software licensing. And we try to make it simple. So as you can see over here, from the original GPL v3 license, which can be about 13 pages, we translated that to 2 sentences and 3 short lists. This made it very easy for any type of user to consume and understand how can they actually comply with this type of license if they were using GPL v3, as well as understand if they were to use this in a commercial capacity and what they had to do to comply. So this was our original premise, and over the course of this year, we're looking to revitalize this. And so we started out by looking into some of our old data of what did users care about and why did they actually come to TLDR Legal. So these are some user statistics and data that we pulled from TLDR Legal, a survey among our audience. So over here, one of the things that we found was, what setting do you use in TLDR and in what kind of capacity? And so we surveyed a bunch of people and we found that overall there was a lot of people that were hobbyists, but there was also a lot of people that use us professionally and as a student. About 31% of the people that came to our website were using us professionally or in the workplace, 11% as students, and some of them are all of the above. So using us for a lot of different cases. We've also seen a lot of people just use us for their own personal projects and open source projects that they're also thinking about. Over on the right, you also see what role do you primarily use TLDR in as well. So over here, you see that a lot of them are actually developers. And by trade, the reason why this is important is at the end of the day, when there is a license compliance issue, it trickles down to the developer to fix that issue. So part of it is that they want to understand why do they need to fix this and what does this actual license mean? So a lot of times they come to TLDR Legal to get the simplified explanation to understand why do they actually need to fix this. And that context of why is very important for a lot of developers when they're fixing this, whether for their own individual project or fixing this for their work for a commercial project as well. So in the bottom left-hand side as well, you'll see some of the challenges around licensing do you deal with on a regular basis. So we surveyed a bunch of people, and these were some of the answers that we got in terms of managing components, content compliance, picking a license to use. And so we slowly, because of that, we've worked with some of the other folks like GitHub to help power one of their websites called Choosing a License. Because we've seen a lot of people struggle with just choosing a license for their own individual project. And so we're hoping to do some similar things to help with OpenChain and find some partnership or collaboration there as well. In some of the surveying for upcoming features that we're thinking about, and we're open to feedback from some of the community from OpenChain as well, but these were some of the 3 things that we've seen a lot of people care about. So developer tools, so like APIs, SDKs around TLDR, community features like editing and commenting so that people can get more involved with our community, and then other licensing tools and features to just manage open source compliance. So for one of the, disclosures on the third item, we did act on in terms of providing one of our flagship products back for TLDR Legal, which is Faucet today. Any questions on some of these statistics?
I don't have a question on the statistics per se. I just, in general, have a question about TLDR Legal and the summarization of licenses into a few short points. Have people raised concerns about potential for misinterpreting licenses or missing out some of the nuances or requirements?
Yeah, so for a lot of those licenses that we've done, I think at the end of the day, TLDR Legal is not it's a legal advice website. It is up to interpretation by the end user. However, we do try to make this like community driven, so a lot of the interpretations, as well as the content on there, are crowdsourced. So we do disclose that in our end user agreement.
Alrighty, thank you.
I think one of the things that we do want to do, however, is to power that. So one of our initiatives is to hopefully partner more with law firms to help endorse that and help us improve the actual content and I guess make it a little bit more concise to understand what is the actual requirements for some of these licenses.
One thing I wanted to throw to the OpenChain community at large is, at the moment, are any of you using TLDR Legal as a resource currently, just to check if we've got users on the line? All right, seems that we might not have existing users on the line, so it's good that you came here, Carlos. So you've been able to raise awareness, and of course this call is recorded, so our Asian stakeholders in China, Japan, and Korea will also get a briefing. Regarding the numbers and the data you've got, it seems you're pretty open with...
Shane, sorry, can I just leap in? I'm sorry, I was driving, so I wasn't able to say anything, but yeah, I've found the next version of the open source policy, which I recently uploaded. So we did make some use of TLDR's sort of underlying decking there, which is sort of acknowledged, etc. So yeah, I found that very, very useful underlying support for this.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
So, Carlos, just out of curiosity, how exactly does FOSSA work with TLDR Legal? What's the kind of community base of TLDR Legal, or is it just a fully owned and operated aspect of FOSSA? And I'm just asking this so people can have clarity on what type of resource this is.
Yeah, so for us, TLDR Legal is owned by FOSSA. We're looking to figure out in terms of operations of how if it would operate under the FOSSA umbrella or if it would operate as a separate entity, part of like potentially like fossa.org. So for us, we are trying to figure out kind of the standing of how we want to engage with the open source community and to give back.
Got it. Now, just for your reference, most of OpenChain stuff that we have internally to the project is public domain, but of course we are open to pointing at resources which operate in a different manner. You mentioned tooling, and we have a lot of activity with tooling in the OpenChain project. In fact, some of the companies like Siemens, Bosch, Toshiba, Fujitsu, Hitachi are currently coalescing to make one set of reference open source tooling for open source compliance, primarily based on Fossology and SW360, and probably clearly defined as well. Just out of curiosity, when it comes to potential interoperability and so on, are you guys open to this tooling grabbing data for reference material? Yeah.
Yeah, so we actually already power Fossology via TLDR.
Perfect. That's good to know.
Yeah. So if you're already using Fossology today, you're most likely already using TLDR Legal. In other cases where you might also be using TLDR Legal is through some of these other open source projects, potentially some of the ones from the JavaScript Foundation, where they're using a combination of both FOSSA and TLDR Legal to help with choosing some of their licenses.
Got it. Throwing the... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carlos.
Sorry about that. Also, yeah, and if you're a developer and you've ever used choosing a license, I think from GitHub, that's also powered by TLDR as well.
Okay, throwing the table open again. Any questions or comments on this from the audience at large? Alrighty. Carlos, if you could send a copy of the slides to our main mailing list and just brief note, that would be super great.
Okay, great. I just have a few more slides that
Sure, go for it.
I can catch up. So our main thing is, our mantra is kind of giving back for the top free licensing content website. That's kind of the pillar these are some of the pillars that we're operating on. So for us, we do want to educate and enable and expand kind of open source around the world. So if there's anything that we can help, we do have a product roadmap that we're putting together right now, and we're happy to get any feedback. So for just our product timeline over the course of the second half of the year, there's a few target states that we're looking to achieve. So our phase one is just there. We haven't really touched the code base much over the past few years, and we're hoping to revitalize that over this next quarter or calendar quarter. And then in the second quarter, we're hoping to grow the community presence as well. So if any of you guys are interested in contributing or letting us know what you would like for some of the product roadmap, we're happy to take any feedback and add that into our upcoming sprint plans. And I'll share these slides afterwards as well. But that's all I have to show. A few kind of questions that I was hoping to open up, but it seems like we're a little time capped here. So if there's any feedback, feel free to reach out. These are some of the questions we wanted to ask kind of the OpenChain community in terms of how can we actually help and how can we partner as well.
I think these questions would be the ideal way to kick off the discussion on the main mailing list. So, if you put those questions and the slides onto the list, then we have full coverage of the community at large. And of course, we can encourage our Japanese, Chinese, and Korean stakeholders to take a look and chip in as well.
Perfect. Okay.
All right.
Thank you for letting us share, and thank you for letting us present as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Carlos.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry for the late question. This is Dave Mark from Qualcomm. Carlos, how many open source licenses have you guys analyzed approximately in your license database? Just interested in scale.
For TLDR legal?
Right.
I would say we have like several hundred unique licenses. And then within versions, I would have to double check on the versions of different licenses. But in terms of unique licenses, several hundred.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? One more follow-up question. Actually, a different question. I know you guys started off. I spoke with Kevin Lang a long time ago about what he was doing, but I lost track. I know that you guys started off with Java as one of the areas of focus for code analysis. Have you guys gone beyond that to C, C++?
Correct. So we, at least separate from TLDR legal for FOSSA, yes, we have.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. And David, happy to take that offline as well, because today's focus is more on TLDR legal.
Yep. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi, Carlos, it's Sam Atabani from ARM. Can I just check, do you do anything with regards to licensing compatibility?
Could you give me a little context of where that question's coming from?
So I'm just curious, I mean, very often what you find if you're working on developing software that you might need to bundle different pieces of software together. And I'm just curious whether there's any way of getting sort of some analysis on compatibility between the different licenses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for TLDR legal, we do have some, I guess, advice on that, but it's interpreted. We're not a law firm. In terms of TLDR legal, we are hoping to add more content. So if that is something that you're looking to read about, we're happy to put that on there. We have started partnering with some law firms locally in the San Francisco Bay Area. So those are some things that we can tackle. I do have some information that we've published before. I can shoot that over to you in terms of thinking about licensing in the legal perspective. I could forward you some of that information.
That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
The other question is, I just had a quick look. So I haven't used TLDR directly, but just had a look. Do you also include the SPDX identifier for licenses?
I don't believe we do include that today, but that's actually a great roadmap item that we could include.
Yeah, that would be extremely useful because again, as the tooling develops, I think we're seeing more and more tools include that, so that there is less ambiguity as to whether people are talking about the same license or not.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sammy.
Thanks.
And of course, our goal here, Carlos, is essentially to open a nice, solid dialogue with you and your team, so that we can keep OpenChain fully briefed, and hopefully our community can also make sure that we know about the resource, but we can also utilize it, whether in our direct read or perhaps in our automation in the future. So thanks very much, Carlos. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you, Shane, for the time.
Super welcome. Now I'm just going to share my screen again, very briefly. We are going to take a quick look at where we're at in public facing on the OpenChain website. So for those of you who are currently up to date on OpenChain, we're heading towards the ISO standardization process. And to prepare for this, we're starting to do things like revamp our website and make it as clear as possible for new entrants what we're about and how to get involved. The current front page looks like this. The idea is to make people aware of OpenChain quite quickly, to present some of our overview information straight up, case studies, and to explain, for instance, the group of companies behind OpenChain and those organizations with publicly conformant programs. When people decide to get started with OpenChain, they can find nice resources for either working on meeting our standard or participating, getting context around our various resources. When people decide to work on meeting our standard nowadays, they have the option of self-certification or third-party certification. Third-party certification today is offered by TÜV-SÜD, but of course we do hope to expand and plan to expand third-party certifiers over time. The core of our project is always self-certification, and that's something which we will always encourage our members and our participants to consider and to utilize. In fact, it's heartening to see in areas like automotive, more and more companies are getting involved for the purpose of self-certification. It's nice to see a very traditional and conservative industry jump on board and work on our project in this manner. We've expanded information about preparation levels that were nicely set up by Nathan Kumagai, chair of the onboarding, awareness, understanding, implementation, and getting conformance around open source compliance. Tons of links to various resources in multiple languages. You can see here onboarding in not only English, but Japanese, Portuguese, German. We've got a lot of information regarding the specification itself, overview guides. We've got examples of processes and how to self-certify, and of course information about training, workflow, and so on. Detailed resources that people can optionally access, or they can just jump straight to self-certification, where we have our newly revamped web app, nice and easy to get started there and to begin working on conformance. Just diving into the web app, and forgive me when I log in initially, it's the admin screen. Don't worry, you will not see that. What you will see is this. When people log into the web app, they have a very simple way to select the version they want to conform to, and then to answer yes/no questions. Some of our goals are longer than others. Some of them are pretty short. Basically, if people go through the goals and can answer yes to every question, they can then save and submit their answers for OpenChain conformance, or they can just save the answers for later if they're doing a health check, etc., etc., not something public. Everything is beginning to come together. We are improving and tweaking the site right now. The Japanese version of the site will be back in a few days to match the new English version. The online conformance, the self-certification, is currently in English and Japanese, but we will be expanding it to Korean and Chinese in the very near future, and I do hope we'll have it in German very shortly as well. So I'm going to throw open the door to everyone and say two things. First of all, how do you feel about the current website? And second of all, do you have any immediate suggestions for improvement, or perhaps can you take a look at the site and send some suggestions later? So, any thoughts, comments, notes, or impressions?
This is Carlos Chung. For the compliance piece, I guess for the application, are tools allowed to kind of take some of this information and embed this into their software as well?
So yeah, when it comes to, let's say, reference material and resources, do you mean?
Yeah, or I guess the actual form fill itself.
Oh yeah, sure.
Shane, I could take that. Hi, Carlos. This is Gary O'Neill. I did a lot of the contributions of it. So
Awesome.
first of all, everything for the app is open source. There's a GitHub repository. I'll drop the link in there, which is the source for it's in a JSON file, and it has all the questions, and that might be something that would help you out. Does that address your question?
Yes, that would be helpful to check that GitHub out. Happy to write any PRs too.
Oh, perfect. By the way, while I have the microphone, I'm looking for any help in the UI area. I'm not the best HTML JavaScript programmer, and so that's the one area that if any of you out there have that expertise and want to contribute to it, it's an open source project, and I really look forward to collaborating with others on improving the site. So just ping me if you're interested, or submit a PR or issue. All of that is great. I'll drop you the link in just a second.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Indeed, being quite cheeky here, Carlos, if you guys want to make a nice splash, it'd be very cool for some help around the web app. And just as a side note, when it comes to our questionnaire, yeah, please implement it anywhere that's useful. So OpenChain is an industry standard, of course, and we have our specification documents nicely tied down. This specification document, of course, is relatively restricted in its licensing and so on to ensure integrity. The online self-certification is just a set of questions to help people double-check if they meet the specification requirements. And of course, you are super welcome to just copy-paste those questions, implement in automation and tooling, anything you need, and we're very happy to help. Alrighty. So we've had quite a few items on this call today. The last thing I'd like to do is just to update you on the ISO standardization. So we have a few new people on the call. I'm just going to reiterate our ISO standardization process. Status today is that OpenChain is the de facto industry standard with strong resources such as reference material, training, processes, checklists, and of course, online free self-certification for any partner. Adjacent to this, we have a growing partner network, primarily law firms, which can offer assistance to companies that need or wish it. OpenChain is, of course, a user project for user companies. All of our Platinum members are user companies. All of our work team chairs are user companies. And the vast majority of our community is based on user companies. As such, we're laser focused on making sure that our industry standard is super accessible. That's why everything is free and the vast majority of everything is public domain. We are prepping to become a formal ISO standard. That's still on track for first half of 2020, I believe. We're going to be going through something called the Publicly Available Specification, or PAS, fast track process in JTC 1, Joint Technical Committee 1 in the ISO organization. The implementation of OpenChain as an ISO standard is on track. We have an ISO specialized editor currently working on the specification to create the ISO version of it. Some language tweaks and changes, nothing changing the meaning, intent, or the validity of the certification. If people are OpenChain 2 conformant, then they'll meet the ISO spec requirements as well. I wanted to check, David Rudin, I think you're still on the call. I was just wondering if you have any update on the past submitter status for Joint Development Foundation, where of course OpenChain is hoping to go through that particular direction to ISO fast track.
Sure, we currently have a draft under review with the OpenChain, basically they call it, the PASS champion, who is an ISO-IC representative that helps shepherd this through the process. So he's currently reviewing our current draft, and hopefully we'll be able to move on from there to formally submit the application.
David, this is great. And what I love about our process is that we're being really boring and predictable. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I
find it exciting.
Oh no, I'm thrilled. And it's hard to get me to shut up about ISO, but it was really fun yesterday. Day before yesterday, I was at a meeting with the Linux Foundation Platinum member companies in Asia, and I always give a briefing about OpenChain, and they just noted that we're tracking. It's like we've got this milestone, we're meeting this milestone, and so forth. And I think that's exactly what we need for an industry standard. Nice, steady progress towards our goals. So. Big thanks, David, for keeping.
Thank you for all your help on this.
Oh gosh, no, it's big kudos to you for spearheading this. Alrighty, we're 45 minutes in. We've got space if you have questions or comments, so floor is open. I'll just be quiet for a minute or so to let people talk if they have a question or a comment. Hey.
Hi, Shane. It's Sammy again.
Hi, Sammy.
I'm just curious with those who are certified on 1.2 or earlier, what the challenges in getting to 2.0, particularly with the ISO. I think we need to have a little bit of help for people to get to 2.0 if they're already certified to earlier versions. And I guess the case study with Mark probably will help with that.
It's such a good point, Sammy. And one thing that has been notable is that people are not jumping super quickly to OpenChain 2.0 conformance. We haven't isolated why. I mean, for some people, the current conformance may be enough. For some people, they might not have extra cycles right now. But we probably need to isolate that and pick and lift where there's any slowdown.
So I'll make one comment. Yeah, I'll make one comment about some of our. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please go ahead.
So there was one major thing we had to do to get to 2.0 from 1.2, and that was put together a different way of managing the training, right? Because it's a little bit more open-ended. How it's worded. It also is kind of worded in a way that pretty much you want to have all the participants in the program have some kind of competence. So what we set up was an online test. We use an online quizzing system. And if someone passes, and there's a test for different roles. So developers would have a certain role, product managers would have a certain role, and they'd have their own test each. Now there's a lot of overlapping questions, but we can create multiple different tests, and then we have a huge common question bank. I'm just telling you the kind of practice we use, and we basically use this opportunity to have the different roles and make sure they pass the test for their respective role, and then we can say that we've achieved the competence for that particular role. And that was the big, I think, additional step we had to take from 1.2 to 2.0. The other more minor things were we had to add some additional documentation. For example, we had to make a statement about our scope of our program. But that was easy. It was a matter of making a formal statement and archiving it. But that was, in a nutshell, kind of our experience going from 1.2 to 2.0, or at least that's how we attacked it.
Okay, that's useful to know, Mark, because as you know, we are going through the 1.2 certification process, and I think last time on the monthly call I did say that we launched our training, and actually this week has been really good because we actually achieved the 86%, which is about 35% that we need, and then considering that was rolled out to over 5,000 ARM employees, I was thrilled to get to that point. And we are going to proceed with the 1.2 certification and then start looking at the 2.0. So I'm just bracing how much effort I will need to put in.
Right. Well, congratulations again to the 85 and plus. And we can, I'll be happy to share our experiences. You might want to think about over time how to, you take what you already built, right, the training, and evolve that. Obviously different companies can do different things to satisfy that requirement.
Yeah.
But, if you want to discuss, I can help share what we did. But it could be obviously different, but I think you can leverage that investment you made in getting that training done.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you indeed, and really good question, Sammy. I think it's one of the areas where I need to turn to next. It is heartening, though, to see organizations like Hella move to OpenChain 2.0 conformance because, as I mentioned, they're pretty new to the ecosystem. So I think the actual change is not too hard to do. It's more a matter of putting cycles on it, but I'll make sure to confirm this in the coming couple of weeks and report back in the next call, the third Monday call.
Hey Shane, this is Gary. I just wanted to mention that the Japanese translations are now up for the Conformance web application, so
Brilliant.
Everything should be go.
Thank you, Gary. I'll take a quick look. So for those of you who are not following our stream of activity on GitHub, Gary has very kindly and patiently been working with me on some quick updates to the web app. We might have one or two bugs for the next short period of time. We're just tweaking it so the landing page language is easier for people to understand. It's something we're doing adjacent to this call. Alrighty, we're nearly out of time. Any last questions or comments? Brilliant. Well, I'd like to thank Carlos for coming over and introducing or reintroducing TLDR Legal to us, and of course everyone on the call. We had a really good call today, I think, some good questions and comments. As you've noted, OpenChain has a lot of news, and I hope that we're providing information about the news on the main mailing list and via the website in a way that's useful for you. If it's not, if you're finding it difficult to track, if you want different approaches, please let me know, and I'll do my best to get that fixed and done as soon as possible. Well, that's it. Thank you all for being on this call. For some of you, have a great morning. For some of you, have a great afternoon. And then for the isolated few in Asia, well, it's either good night or good morning for us.